I used to feel like I was just guessing when I improvised, just playing random notes and hoping they sounded good. Surprisingly, that's the exact same problem every student I've ever taught has faced as well. They know their pentatonic scales, but something still feels stuck. So for the past 3 years, I've been helping intermediates solve this exact problem. Today, I'm going to show you a simple shift that finally made everything click for me and all the students that I've ever taught. The best part is this method is stupidly simple. And once it clicks, you'll never see the fretboard in the same way again. By the end of the video, we're going to find the secret triad patterns hiding inside of the pentatonic scale shapes that you already know how to play. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, if the pentatonics are so simple, why do my solos still sound a bit melodically boring? Whereas great guitarists like Jimi Hendrix or Eric Clapton can make groundbreaking music with the exact same scale shapes. What are they doing that's different from the rest of us? Well, the answer lies in how much detail these guitarists can see inside of their scale shapes. For the longest time, the fretboard felt like a complete maze to me. Every time I'd try and explore a new area, I just ended up feeling lost and overwhelmed, and it was just a matter of time before I would improvise and hit a bad sounding note. I thought the solution was to learn more and more about the fretboard, like learn these massive arpeggio shapes, learn all these different exotic scales, and learn endless amounts of licks to fill in the gaps of my information on the fretboard. But that didn't help. I had a lot of information, but no real kind of fluency or ability to apply all the things I was trying to learn. There's an old proverb that goes, "The man who chases 2 rabbits catches none." And I think this kind of describes the situation that intermediate guitarists find themselves in quite well. I would have progressed so much faster if someone would have explained to me that you don't need to focus on learning as much as possible. You just need to focus on going more in depth in what you already understand on the fretboard. So let's go in depth into something familiar to us. Let's look at this A minor pentatonic box. We all know that we can use that shape to play a minor sounding scale over an A minor chord. Again, it doesn't matter how you play the chord. It could be this A minor bar chord like this, or an open chord. It could even be a completely different instrument playing it. It could be a keyboard player playing an A minor chord. We just know that we can play this shape over the top of it to make things that kind of sound nice. But this is just a surface level understanding, and most of us stop here and start learning like a new shape at this point, a completely new and different concept. We all understand that we have this box that we can use to just kind of play notes, but none of us really know what these notes do, why they work, or what the nicest sounding notes really are inside of this shape. As a result of this surface level understanding, we just try and play every single note inside the box mindlessly. And when we decide to end a phrase, we kind of just roll the dice and pick a random note inside the box, hoping that it sounds good, when in reality it just sounds like you're running up and down a scale exercise. So let's analyze this box on a deeper level so we have a better sense of strategy when improvising inside of this pentatonic box shape. So intrinsically, we all understand that if there's any note that we can play over the chord A minor, it's going to be the note A. So the first thing we have to do is map out and look for places we can find the root notes inside of this box. So guitarists are quite good at finding root notes. It's probably quite easy for you to figure out that like we have the note A here on the low E string, then we've got the note A as well on the D string, the octave, and then like because the E strings are tuned the same way for the low E and the high E, it's going to be the same place to find that root note as well, over here as well. So inside of this box shape, we have places where we can play the root note here, here, and here. But the thing is, the root notes, they sound kind of boring. So this is where we need to understand what other notes are going to sound nice over the chord that we're playing. Since this scale works over minor chords, the minor third and the fifth of the chord that we're playing is going to sound quite nice when we play them, right? Well, coincidentally, the pentatonic scale also contains the intervals of a minor third and a fifth. Inside the pentatonic scale, we can find a root note, a minor third, which again, the chord has a minor third, right? We have a perfect fourth, which is unique to the pentatonic scale. Then we have the fifth, which again, that's inside of the chord that we're playing as well. Minor seventh, that kind of isn't really in the chord yet. And then then back to the root. So we have root, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor seventh, root. And in the chord, we can find the notes root, minor third, and fifth. So that means we can find those minor thirds and fifths inside of this pentatonic scale shape. So we had our root over here. We can find places to play a minor third. We can play the minor third here, and here, inside of this shape. And then we can find places to play the perfect fifth as well. Like I can play the perfect fifth here, and like there's a perfect fifth here as well, right? So now we're mapping out the roots, thirds, fifths inside of this scale shape. So we understand it on a deeper level. So this gives us some places to kind of target some nicer sounding notes. But the thing is, it's going to be quite difficult to remember all these intervals as just kind of unique locations like that. So we're going to look at this from another perspective to make things easier for ourselves. And to do that, we need to understand triads. Now, we all probably understand that a triad is just a root, a third, and a fifth of a chord. Seeing as a minor triad contains a root, a third, and a fifth, and that pentatonic scale also contains a root, a third, and a fifth, that means these two concepts are going to line up with each other perfectly because they share something in common. Now, a minor root position triad looks like this. We have the root, then we have a minor third, and then we have a fifth. And when I pair them all together, I get this. This is an A minor root position triad, right? And as you can see, this chunk of notes fits perfectly inside of that pentatonic scale box. So by understanding where these triads are in that pentatonic box, as a result, you start to map out where your chord tones are inside of the box. So this means that you have a deeper understanding of where the most melodic notes are inside of your pentatonic box. The melodic notes are the chord tones, and triads are chord tones, right? So how are you supposed to use this when improvising? You want to adopt this strategy. If you want to sound really melodic, make sure you finish your phrase on any triad note. So any of these roots, thirds, or fifths, it doesn't really matter what it is. As long as you understand the shape and where it exists inside of that scale, you can land on any points of these triads and it's going to sound more melodic. So really, you can play anything you want inside of this box. You just have to justify your phrase by landing and finishing on a triad note. Again, I'm just picking any of these three notes to land on. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is a pretty cool strategy and a pretty cool formula, but I only have this small chunk of notes inside of this box. Can I do this on all the other strings as well? And well, the answer is yes. You can map out the roots, thirds, and fifths on every single string inside of this pentatonic box using the triad shapes. The easiest way to do this is something I came up with called the triad trees method. This is always the first thing that I teach all of my students. Let me explain how this works quickly. So we all probably know that we have these triad shapes on a string set. So I had this root position that I showed you a minute ago, right? And we know that we can kind of connect the inversions by playing all these different shapes up and down the same string sets. So we're only playing triads that go across like this, right? But did you know that triads also connect up and down the same way that like the kind of scale shape goes, right? So you can find places where triads connect on different string sets above and below each other. So from this root position on the D, G, and B strings, I have this shape underneath it. And then above it, I have this shape. And then above that shape, I have this one over here. So you can see these kind of shapes kind of all grouped together, giving us this big cluster of roots, thirds, and fifths, all in the same spot on the fretboard. They connect together really, really nicely. And again, I call this the triad tree system just because you kind of have a root position and you can kind of swing to different triads like different branches on a tree. Now, tying this all back to what I mentioned earlier, a pentatonic scale also contains a root, a minor third, and a fifth. So this triad tree shape is going to perfectly overlap with this minor pentatonic shape. So when we improvise, we now have an understanding of where all the strongest, most melodic notes are inside of this box. We just have to follow this pattern. So again, all I have to do is play a phrase inside of the box shape and just make sure that I end on any of those notes. inside of that triad trees pattern. So I could play the exact same phrase and I could just follow the triads. And it's a cheat code to sounding melodic inside of that box. All I have to do is just line up two things and then finish on the triad notes. Those are my chord tones, the roots, thirds, and fifths. Now, if you're having that moment where you're seeing these connections for the first time and you're realizing how much easier melodic improvisation could be, then listen up for just a second, because this could be a real turning point for you. If you know your pentatonic shapes, and when it comes time to actually improvise and make music, everything sounds random or mechanical, or maybe you have no idea how to use like major and minor sounds in your improvisation, you're not alone. This is exactly where most intermediate players get stuck. And honestly, it's not your fault. It's just no one's ever shown you how to go deeper into the shapes you already know how to play. Take Cameron, for example. He was one of my students. When he first came to me, he could fly through all 5 pentatonic positions. He had finger strength, he had some speed, and he had some good technique on the instrument. But every solo he played felt like he was just doing the exact same pentatonic tricks over and over again. He knew there was more music hiding on the fretboard, but he had no idea how to actually find it or unlock it. After just a few weeks of working through the triad tree system with me, he went from sounding like he was trapped inside of the pentatonic scale to creating real, flowing, emotional melodies all the way across the fretboard. He stopped guessing and he started hearing connections, and people actually started complimenting his phrasing and not just kind of his technique and how fast he could play pentatonics. He truly understood how to use the fretboard. If you're ready to finally unlock the musical side of your pentatonic shapes and you want to sound like you're playing intentional melodies instead of just kind of random phrases through the pentatonics, then I'd love to help you make that exact transformation. All you have to do is click the link below in the description to head to my website. Or if you're watching on a TV at the moment, grab your phone and go to howigotgoodatguitar.com. On my site, you can book a free assessment call with me. This is where we'll figure out exactly where you're stuck with your playing at the moment, and we're going to map out the clearest, fastest path forward for you. Worst case scenario is that you hop on a call with me and we walk away with some more clarity and strategy on how to improve. Best case scenario, you become another success story after figuring out how to musically improvise through the changes without being overwhelmed. Either way, you win, so you'd be silly not to book a call with me. If you want to move beyond just playing scales and start making some real music, hit the link below in the description, or if you're on TV at the moment, go to How I Got Good at Guitar to get started. Now, the best part is that everything that I've shown you today is completely transposable. Let's say I wanted to play over A minor and then go to like a different chord, like D minor. So I have A minor over here, and then I have D minor over here. All I have to do is shift this box, and the places where all those kind of like melodic sounding notes align to the new root note over here for D. And I could do the exact same stuff and kind of target those melodic sounding notes over the chord of D. So if I wanted to play through those chord changes, like I could do A minor, do something like that, and then I go to D minor, I just do the exact same kind of formula over there. This is completely transposable. You get to keep this information of where those roots, thirds, and fifths align, and you can apply them in different places across the fretboard. Now, eventually you want to get to the point where instead of having to make these massive jumps, you can actually find a new scale shape that fits on top of where you're already playing. So I could play A minor over here, find those kind of like chord tones over there, and then I can switch to like a D minor in the exact same spot on the fretboard. So instead of having to do this massive jump, I can then just switch to a new spot right where my hands already are and play some new chord tones over there. And again, you could potentially do this with like major sounds as well. Let's say I wanted to play like A minor and then go to D major instead. You can find places where like the major pentatonic lines up with the major triad notes. So I go like A minor and like D major. And you can actually mix major and minor pentatonics as well. If you want to understand how to do this, you have two options. You can either go to my website and find out more to solve your problem as fast as possible, or I've also made another video on this exact subject over here on where the triads overlap with pentatonics and how to group things as close as possible. I recommend you check out this video if you're interested as well.